I'm Ashley McIntyre. I am a certified nutrition specialist, and in the state of Florida, I'm a licensed dietitian nutritionist. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today about the Mediterranean diet and tips and specific recipes that most of which I've made. I think I've made like 90% of the recipes I'm going to share with you today to elevate your health, while still having Parkinson's, eating and the things that we eat, the things that we do for movement, our stress management techniques, these all, play a role into how we feel. So I'm excited to share those with you today. A little bit about me. I was a previous pharmaceutical rep for about 8.5 years, right out of college. And then when I had my first daughter, decided to stay home. So I stayed home with my 2 daughters for a while. And when I decided to come back to work, I went and got my master's in clinical nutrition and decided to work with clients one-on-one doing nutrition because I really do believe food is medicine. I think, we get 3, sometimes 5 times a day, opportunities, I call them, to choose certain foods that are going to nourish us and really support our health. So excited to be with you today. Please feel free to interrupt me and ask questions at any time. So, you can raise your hand and jump in, and it can be kind of like a conversation. I don't have to be a teacher. So I wanted to start today. I listened to a podcast with Dr. Ray Dorsey, and he was on with Max Lugavere, who has a couple different books on nutrition and brain health as it relates more to Alzheimer's. His mom passed away from Alzheimer's, so that is his kind of focus and what he does stuff on, but the podcast was a really good one, and so that inspired me to buy this book. It was just published in August. So I've read through, full disclosure, I've read about half of it. So the beginning of it is really great. It does go over some of what we believe at this point with the knowledge that we have that might contribute to Parkinson's. And what's pretty fascinating, I think, is about 15% of people that get a Parkinson's diagnosis have a genetic predisposition. That doesn't mean that if you have that genetic DNA marker that you're going to get it, but it can be turned on by certain lifestyle things, and that's part of it. But the majority, 85%, it's due to a link with environmental exposures is what they're really, finding. What I think is even more fascinating, because we're here today to move forward and see what we can do to benefit our health today. I think that's why you guys are all here. Is that he comes up with something called the Parkinson's 25. So I'm going to spend more time on the food-related recommendations, and then I'll share the other ones with you as well. But since I'm a nutritionist, I'll focus more on the food-related recommendations because I think that they can be really great tips to reduce any more chemical or toxin exposure moving forward so that you can hopefully slow the progression of the disease. That's kind of the goal, once you've had a diagnosis. So he also starts with food recommendations too, just so you know, because I believe that he thinks the food stuff is really important as well. So some of the top food recommendations were washing produce, even if it's organic, because even if you're buying organic raspberries or blueberries or whatnot, they still have, now they're organic pesticides, but they still have pesticides on them. So he definitely recommends still washing your produce either with 20 seconds of just water, or you can do like a salt bath. There's some different washes that you can buy too. I'm not very familiar with them. I usually just do water with mine. And then what we're here to talk about today is talking about diet. So they recommend the Mediterranean diet. So making, a change from more processed foods like the Western diet, more like the Western diet is more carbohydrate centric and fat centric, and kind of moving towards whole foods, that are grown from the ground, or that are, meat or eggs or stuff like that. So we'll talk more in detail about that later. And then he also talks about a safe grocery store, which I know that sounds a little weird, but one of the things that he goes into when he talks about, or when they, not just he, when they talk about chemical and toxin exposure, it's primarily from the dry cleaners. So I think we've talked about this before when I've gone over things that can slow the progression of the disease. Studies do show that, reduce your exposure by, not wearing dry cleaning clothing. The specific toxin they're looking at is called PCE. Now, back this past January, they did nationally say we're going to start removing PCE from dry cleaners, but they have 10 years to do it. So by Safe Grocery Store, see if there is, a dry cleaners that's adjacent to the grocery store, because those chemicals can get into the duct airways and get into your grocery store, making sure that our food is safe. So I would ask the dry cleaners, that you're going to, if you use one, and or, if there's one in connection or conjunction with your Publix or wherever you shop, because that kind of happens a lot, that there's a dry cleaners really close, right? So have you guys read anything on that about the dry cleaning and the chemical exposure? Yeah, it's very interesting. And yeah, and they talk a lot about that in the book. They give a lot of very real world stories about very personalized, stories from people that served in the military in Camp Lejeune and stuff like that too. So definitely, but the more we can reduce it now, we can reduce that, hopefully slow the progression of the disease already, right? It's called PCE. I can't say the real word. It's too big and long. PCE. So I would just avoid that if possible. Another, it goes back to chemicals and toxins too, is with caffeine and wine too. Those two things, specifically with wine, most wine, in order to keep the grapes, at the perfect ripeness, they use a lot of pesticides on them. A lot more companies are popping up and doing organic wine though. So if you do choose to partake, that might be something to look into. I'm not really familiar as much with vodka. I would assume that vodka is made from potatoes and corn?
The really good vodka.
Yes. Yeah, so you would, ideally, you would want it to be organic, I would assume, but I don't know. I would say everything in moderation too. And then it does talk about avoiding and managing diabetes. So avoiding it if you don't have it, if you already have a diagnosis, managing it. And we've talked a lot about that here, right? We've talked about how to manage the blood sugar swings and why that's so important. Making sure that we're eating the critical four, so that protein, fat, and fiber, those three things. I like the fourth one, color, because you're getting in more micronutrients, but the protein, fat, and fiber together, it's what'll kind of keep your blood sugar stable. So that's really important with the slowing the progression of Parkinson's. Something that's interesting, and I did read this, caffeine, it may actually protect the dopamine producing nerve cells from damage that results from the exposure to these environmental toxins. So so a win for, it doesn't say coffee specifically, it just says caffeine. So that could be tea, that could be coffee. I would only recommend you stop around 3 p.m. so it doesn't interfere with your sleep.
You're saying caffeine's okay?
It shows it protects the dopamine producing nerve cells, which is what you're lacking in the Parkinson's diagnosis, right? We don't get as many of those. The dopamine nerve cells aren't working as well as they used to. So we want to protect them, and it's been shown that caffeine can be supportive for that. Yeah. And then farm safely, again, it just goes back to the toxins and pesticides. So harmful pesticides to Parkinson's disease specifically are paraquat is one of them, DDT is another, and then a word that is very hard for me to pronounce, but I'm going to try, chlorpyrifos. But it's all in the book. I do highly recommend it. If I had a family member, I'd want to read it too. So, but there's a couple more. So those were all of the food recommendations. Those are the top. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the top 7 of his top 25. And then he moves into other things like water recommendations. So this is actually something we've talked about. I put it in a slide saying that, people that drink from well water, it's not tested regularly, unfortunately. So if there are 40 million Americans that drink from wells. So it's really important for you to take your own responsibility if you drink from one. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has a list of labs, and if you just check it annually, that's what they recommend. And in addition to use a water filter. So, there's so many different water filters. You can use a carbon one that's like a pitcher one. You can get a whole house filtration system, but something to kind of reduce any of those chemicals coming in. That could be, runoff into our waters that then we're drinking. So especially those pesticides there's lots of golf courses around here. I'm so sorry, I didn't see your hand.
When I was about 16 years old, the water we had that was coming out of the walls in my house would turn the wall tan or orange or whatever.
Yeah.
We said, well, this just is sulfur, I think, at that particular point. And nobody cared. You have sulfur in your water, so we'll put this filter on here, and it'll take the taste out of it.
Yeah, and I think that, we didn't realize through the Industrial Revolution that these chemicals and toxins that we're using to kill bugs and to keep the bugs off of our foods and to keep our golf courses pretty, all this stuff, it wasn't meant to be harmful, but it's taken decades to see some of the harm that it's creating. So he goes through so many different studies that they've done, they do in the Parkinson's plan, and that's one of the reasons I really like it, because it's very science-based. They do give individual accounts, but it is also based upon science. They kind of break it down both ways. I'm sorry.
That's all right. As far as farm safety is concerned, it's too late for me this year to start one, but in the spring, I plan on starting a garden. The water that comes out of the water hose, where you have to water this garden.
Of course.
What happens with the water that comes through the water hose, because it's city water, it's not purified.
Right.
How do you farm safely with water you can't control?
I have 2 avenues for you.
Because there's no way that I can afford to put purified water
No.
on the garden. in order
So
to
I would imagine, I actually don't know if they make them, but I would put a pretty big bet that there is a nozzle that you can put on your hose that has a filter.
Okay.
It's what I would
You
bet.
can get a rain barrel,
Okay.
and a rain barrel is fine, but now we have all these chemicals in the air that are coming into our rain and raining into our ground and then being re-evaporated back up into the air again. So the next time it rains, you've still got that same problem again. Because with the jet streams, the airplanes, and how many airports do we have around here? Come on, give me a break. We've got a lot of petrol in the air. So that is also another problem that's going to come in even through our rain barrels. So how do you control everything that's going into the ground so that when your produce grows, you're getting a true fresh piece of produce? What about the composting? How is that going to affect your plants? How is that going to affect the end result of what you've planted? How do we control this so that when we do go to the organic foods that we want to be pure, how do we keep them that way?
So my 3 avenues would be some sort of nozzle that has a filter on your hose. My second one would be, I don't know if you've seen those hydroponic, they're like tiered, and then, you put your plants in them and they, something like that. Or my third, and I don't know that you're going to love this response, is that sometimes when we start kind of going down a rabbit hole, we stress ourselves out, and the stress from worrying about all the different pieces can do more harm than good too.
I'm looking for the least of the issues. Not
Yeah.
gonna stress over it. I'm
Okay.
gonna eat it no matter what
Okay,
it is.
because eating whole foods in general is what we're going for. So that's better than what's in the box. So we have to do, right? But earth boxes or I forget what they're called. They're like these hydroponic boxes, and I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet.
Well, neither have I. I've
But-
got to study it first.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, but still with the water, I'm not sure you're gonna be able to manage all the different avenues that you just mentioned.
Probably not, but like I said, the least of all the evils.
Right, right. What I was going to say with water filters, I find the one that's easiest in my home. I use Clearly Filtered. It's a filter that goes on my fridge. And because that's where we drink all of our water as a family. It's very expensive to invest in a whole house system, but that's what I find works for us. Clearly Filtered also has the pitchers. I won't be very diligent in filling those up, so. But for indoor air recommendations, they talk about using air purifiers. The other thing, if you don't want to do that, because those can get expensive, you have to change the filters. I put a email sign up back there, but NASA has actually done studies on what plants purify the air the best because they put them on spaceships when they go away for long periods of time and in the International Space Center. And there's a list of like 12 plants that they recommend that can really help purify, and they're little house plants that you can just put around your house. So I can send that list out. That's a pretty easy way to do it without having to worry about air filters. And then they also talk about not poisoning yourself is what it's titled, and using too much pest control, using bug spray, flea spray that we put on our animals. That And then it also talks about, like, if you're buying a home, nobody's going to sell their home for this reason, because full disclosure, live very close to a golf course. But when they talk about when buying a home, considering a home that, isn't super close to golf courses, there has been recent studies that have come out that say if you live within 3 miles of a golf course, the percentage chance of being diagnosed with Parkinson's goes up. And then the other thing to look at when you're buying a home, they're called Superfund sites. We don't have any in this area. I think they're in West Bradenton. But I've looked at this. There's a website that looks at Superfund sites. They're sites where chemicals were just dumped. And so then they leak into the soil, and then they get into our water and our food and everything. So they recommend that. We've already talked about dry cleaning cautiously. And then if you were to purchase, check the ground floor, meaning if you were to purchase in a high rise, which we don't have a ton here unless you're living in downtown Sarasota. If you're purchasing in a high rise, they've shown that if there is a dry cleaner on that ground floor, it can seep chemicals all the way up, to all of the apartments and everything above. So just something to be mindful of again. And this is only if you're choosing to move. This is not like go sell your house tomorrow, because I'm still living in my house. And then really, looking into where if children or grandchildren go to school or daycare in their environment, is there a dry cleaner right next door? Is it close to a Superfund site? Stuff like that. And then the last few things, talking about air, outdoor air pollution, if you're in traffic, roll up your windows, gardening with care, we just kind of talked about that. Being mindful of the greens really talks about golf courses and if they're spraying, just let them spray, maybe play an hour or two later. Again, with children's schools, they talked about the pesticides that they spray on the soccer fields and stuff like that. And then PPE, use PPE as personal protection. I forget what the E stands for. Gear is what I'm thinking of. Equipment. There we go. Equipment.
Presume the way I was exposed to Agent Orange was when I was in Thailand, my barracks were all modern air-conditioned enclosed systems. When the gardener would come around with his pumpity pump thing, he would be putting the spray right next to the air conditioner intake. We all got.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. But the thing I like about this book and these things is that they're things that we can reduce our exposure to now, and hopefully that can slow the progression. So mainly, what we're here to talk about today is the Mediterranean diet, right? And we're going to talk about different recipes and things that you guys can make at home that are easy, that can kind of follow that. So I think the next slide is the new Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list, because I think it finally came out and the last one I showed you was not updated. So I'll leave this up there if you want to take a picture. I'd be happy to email it as well. So the Dirty Dozen are the ones that have the most pesticides, that they do recommend you buy organic, and then the Clean 15 are the ones that have the least pesticides. So just don't waste your money and buy the regular conventional is really what's recommended. And EWG is the economic working group that puts that list together every year. And then I feel like I always want to share this, Oh, I'll go back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go too fast. I apologize. Am I in the way? So,
A question for you about the Dirty Dozen. There are people who say you can take, say, blueberries or strawberries that are non-organic and rinse them in a dilute solution of sodium bicarb or baking soda in water
yeah.
for 15 minutes and takes off the pesticides. Is that good?
I've heard that. I haven't seen studies on it or anything, but I've heard that people do that or do the same thing, but with like sea salt, and then it helps pull off the pesticides. I would assume that there would still be pesticides in, like the spinach. You're not really going to rinse much off, right? Like leafy greens, things where you eat the whole fruit or vegetable versus like a pineapple or an avocado or a papaya where you're not eating the outside, they're not going to be as saturated, if you will. So.
This new thing that they're wanting you to buy, Clean Boss.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Spray it on your vegetables and rinse them off, and that's supposed to take the pesticides off. But how do we know that Clean Boss is any good to?
I probably, that's why I haven't bought any. I just try to do a good rinse with water. If I have time, which is very rarely, I'll soak it in water, but I have 2 kids. I usually don't have time to do that. Yes.
The Dirty Dozen,
Yes.
when I go down that list, I eat just about all of that. But strawberries, cherries right now, the last month, apples, blackberries, blueberries.
Blueberries are good
All
for you.
of the berries, they encourage you to eat them.
Of course.
But and I do wash them, but I may take a handful and wash them in my hand.
That's what I do. Does that make you feel better?
And, I don't think I do it for,
Not 20 minutes, 20 seconds is I think what the recommendation was in the book. Yeah. But I think the more you can do, the better. But I also think like take a step back. Like if your budget doesn't allow you to buy organic, take a deep breath. It's fine. This is just if your budget does allow you to buy organic, then those would be the ones I would focus on. So it's just one of those. It's like knowledge is power situation. So and if that fits in your budget, then that's a great option. If not, whole foods are always better. Berries are amazing, high antioxidants, very anti-inflammatory, very good for brain health in general. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't stress about that. I feel like I show this every time, but I always want to because I do think it's really important for just health in general, specifically even, Dr. Dorsey and Dr. Okun, I think I'm saying that right, in the book talk about how managing, either avoiding a diabetes diagnosis or managing diabetes is really important. And that's really where it really comes down to eating the critical 4, even at snacks, right? So eating your protein, fat, and fiber together so that you have that balanced blood sugar, so that we're not having these big peaks and valleys and, causing more damage at a cellular level, causing that inflammation. So, okay, guess what? We finally made it to the Mediterranean diet. I was just really excited to share some of the stuff in this book, and I'll share more if there's more in the back half that I think is really pertinent, but I think it's a great book. I would definitely read it. So Mediterranean diet. So what do you guys think, kind of comprises the Mediterranean diet? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of not processed foods, right? You think of whole foods. So really it's not a restrictive diet. It's not like keto where you have to eat certain amounts of fat and protein and low carbs. And it's not, carnivore or Atkins, where all of these are very like strict diets where you're eating different macros and different amounts of sugar and everything. It's more just healthy eating, right? And so it's promoting more, whole fruits and vegetables, unprocessed whole grains, fats, they really focus on nuts, nut butters, olive oil, obviously, and then proteins, lean poultry, fish, legumes, so lots of beans. And what it really minimizes are the processed foods. So like your sodas, your sweets, and your baked goods, processed meats, so like pepperoni and ham and salami. It minimizes red meats. They don't not eat red meat though, but it does minimize it, and butter. Yes.
What about cheeses?
It does show typically that they eat less dairy. Most of their dairy is cheese when they eat it though. So cheese or yogurt, it's less of just like milk, if you will. But the cheeses that are more fermented are ones that have been shown to be better for gut health and longevity. So if you were to eat cheese, I would eat the ones that tend to have more fermentation to them versus like very processed American cheese.
Sauerkraut's supposed to be good.
Yeah, very good for gut health, for sure. So has anyone heard of the blue zones? Have you guys seen things or read about the blue zones? Dan Buettner discovered them about 30 years ago. There are 5 blue zones in the world, and there is a Netflix documentary. If you guys have Netflix, I've only watched a few of them, but they're very interesting. And he kind of goes in the different Netflix series, and he has books and stuff too. But blue zones, in essence, are places in the world where there are the most concentrated amounts of centenarians, so people over 100. And these are centenarians that aren't like, in hospital beds. They're still part of society, watching their great-grandchildren and tending to their gardens and just still able to be active in the community. So, he went to all these different blue zones and really created, I think it's 9 pillars that he created that looks at different things that could contribute to why these people live longer and healthier than others. So I think it was Ikaria, Greece, of the blue zones. They looked at their Mediterranean diet, right? And they consume about 95% of their food from plants. And meat is eaten, just not as much as we eat in the United States. But notable is really their rate of heart disease and cancer is half that of Americans. And even more remarkable is there's almost no cases of dementia there. So obviously there's something that they're doing in their way of life. It's not just one thing. It's not just the way they eat or, the way that their community is and everything. There's multiple different pieces, but it's really attributed to be part. The Mediterranean diet is attributed to be part of the reason why, these blue zones exist, and a lot of them eat this way. So a lot of the foods that we're going to talk about are antioxidants. Like we were talking about berries, and I said they're high in antioxidants and they're anti-inflammatory. So this is my little biochemistry slide that I like to show. So what is an antioxidant, right? So a healthy atom has balanced electrons. I promise this is my only biochem slide. A healthy atom has balanced electrons. So when atoms become unhealthy, they're called free radicals, and they cause damage at a cellular level. So they become free radicals because they're missing an electron, and they're mad about it. They're not balanced. They become mad, and they create damage at this cellular level. What an antioxidant is when we consume foods or supplements that have a plethora of electrons. So my analogy is like like Oprah on her giving days, where she's like, you get a car and you get a car. This antioxidant has electrons to give to everyone. So it donates it to the free radical, and then it becomes a happy, healthy atom again. So that's why we want to eat foods that are antioxidants, because there's no way that we're not going to experience these mad free radicals at a cellular level. They can be due to stress. They can be because, we went to an event and somebody was smoking in our face, and so now we've been inhaling all this cigarette smoke. It can be because we had an amazing cheeseburger with some French fries the night before. It can be for many reasons, but so antioxidants are really important. A lot of the foods that we're going to talk about are rich in antioxidants. So I wanted to go over that first, like what an antioxidant is. So these are the foods that we've talked about, it's important to include for Parkinson's disease that will slow the progression. So fiber-rich foods, omega-3 rich foods, antioxidants, olive oil and coconut oil, nuts, turmeric, and green tea. So we're going to try to really come up with some great recipes in the next few slides that can be supportive and that you can try out at home. So first off, really important for Parkinson's, make sure you're eating enough. You do have a higher metabolism when you have Parkinson's disease. There can be issues with chewing or swallowing, so you may need to puree food, have some smoothies, and then feeling of fullness. So you may actually have to have smaller, more frequent meals if you get too full while you're eating, because lack of energy is a side effect of Parkinson's. But if you look at food as fuel to give you energy, you need to make sure you're eating enough throughout the day to have enough. And water is really important with Parkinson's disease as well. So curcumin is the active component of the turmeric spice. So I'm gonna list some recipes that have turmeric and obviously curcumin in them, and they reduce inflammation at a cellular level. So it has neuroprotective components. It exhibits anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, also anti-cancer properties, and it does this because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it's neuroprotective to various neurological disorders. So this is something that can be very beneficial for Alzheimer's disease as well. So this is a really easy salad dressing to make. I did post it's kind of cut off my screen a little, but I did post the QR codes for these if you wanted to screenshot them and open them. But again, if you put your email in the back, I can send the list of recipes when we're done. But this is just a really easy turmeric salad dressing using extra virgin olive oil and apple cider vinegar. And then I love that it uses turmeric and ginger, since they're both really beneficial for being antioxidants and anti-inflammatory. Does anyone ever make salad dressing at home? Yeah, they're so easy, and the only caveat is that they don't last as long as like a bottle of salad dressing from the store. So I make like really small amounts, but they're just very easy. One of my go-to ones at home is just using olive oil, balsamic, some Dijon mustard, and then I'll if I have time to chop a real garlic clove, I do. If I don't, I use garlic powder and a little salt. But those are just so much easier and healthier. They don't have a lot of the preservatives that keep store-bought salad dressings longer, but I highly recommend just making them in very small amounts. Like you might even want to half this if it's just you and a significant other at home, so it doesn't go bad. Has anyone ever tried golden milk? It's really good. There was actually a juice place that's not too far from here, but they just closed, that used to sell it, that was delicious. But this is an easy one you can make at home with coconut milk or almond milk. You can also make it with full dairy milk. I just know that, in the stuff that we've done and talked about here with slowing disease progression, they do talk about limiting your dairy. So you can use, a mixture of one or the other with some vanilla and a little maple syrup, and then you put the ground turmeric in there with some cinnamon and nutmeg, and it's a very fall drink. It's very good. It's kind of like instead of hot chocolate drink, and it can satisfy the sweet tooth a little too because of the maple syrup that's in it. But that one's really good. I highly recommend it. This is a staple in my house. This is black pepper chicken stir fry. And I should have said, I'll let you know when they're my recipes, but most of these recipes are just ones that I found online, but I have made most of them. But this is so easy because it's a one-pot meal. You just kind of slice up some chicken breasts, put some seasoning on it, and then you kind of saute it all together with the veggies. And I usually put it over rice. But the thing I like about this is that because it uses ginger and turmeric, it has like a very, I don't know, kind of, it's a very good flavor. It's different than what your typical chicken stir fry would taste like that's more Mexican based. So highly recommend it. This one's really good. And the reason I like to show various recipes too is because the Mediterranean diet is so easy to modify from different, it's not strict, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You're able to adapt it to many different types of recipes and change them. So omega-3 fatty acids are, fatty acids that unfortunately we don't get a lot through diet, but we can only get them through diet. Our body doesn't make them. It really supports, anti-inflammatory components at a cellular level. Sources would be like fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. So this is also a favorite in my house. It's actually, I think it's like a Publix aprons cooking recipe, the cards you get when you walk in. I think it was one of those from years ago, but it's super easy. You just mix together some basil, Dijon mustard, and lemon and put it on top of the salmon and bake it for 14 minutes. It's a fan favorite in my house because it's so easy to put together. If it's available and your budget allows, I would highly recommend wild-caught salmon if that works for you because it's just less, the quality's better. They don't use antibiotics in the water for wild-caught salmon. The next two recipes are really easy for like a lunch. This one is Mediterranean tuna, and kind of going back to some of the things that we've talked about before. If possible, don't buy the tuna out of the can, buy it out of the little pouch. A lot of the studies that show things that can increase the progression of Parkinson's disease are foods from a can. So I would just try to avoid that if possible, but don't get too caught in the weeds if that's stressful. And what do you mean vegetables? It's the BPA that's in the can liner. Yeah, so there are like beans and veggies that I've seen now, and it's like a cardboard, looks like a juice box, almost like a kid's juice box, and they have them more at like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. I haven't seen them. Publix used to carry them, but my Publix stopped. So, but I say this, I give you all the information that I've learned from all the studies I've read, but then also take a step back in real world. It's much better to eat veggies out of a can than it is to eat like Oreos out of the box. So it's like, choose this, not that. So it's information is knowledge. And if you're able to put it into practice, great. But if not, just choose the best that you can.
I typically buy frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
And then I go to the store.
Perfect.
But there are a lot of frozen vegetables now that are packed for 2 people, and you just pop in the microwave, steam in the bag. What about that?
I would not do that if you can, unless you're in a pinch. And again, it's either choose the vegetables out of the bag or eat the Oreos situation. But I buy a lot of frozen veggies, and they're actually cheaper, and they're picked at peak ripeness. So they're usually perfectly ripe. And same with berries and fruit and stuff. But they usually have another option, steam and bag or stovetop. So I would choose the stovetop. Otherwise, you're really baking the plastic into.
Yeah, okay.
There's, in Publix, they have the fresh vegetables in a bag, and for me, I'll have the green beans or even Brussels sprouts and broccoli. And it says, put a fork in the bag and put it in the microwave and cook it for 3 minutes. And it's supposed to be, it's fresh vegetables.
And I'm sure, and again, that is better than eating like processed food. But if you can avoid the plastic that it's being baked in the microwave, I would do, they usually have other options on the back. They'll say, or stovetop, or cooktop, or it's usually not just the microwave plastic option. I know that's more work. So I know. So if that's how you eat your veggies, then I want you to continue to do that.
What about Pampered Chef? They have a line of microwave pots and pans and ricers that I've used for years that are so good at what they do. But are you getting the same types of chemicals out of those that you are the plastic bags? Or do they erase that because it is microwave safe?
I don't know about that particular brand.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I usually recommend clients, there's a few nonstick brands that are okay, like Caraway is okay, but if you ever get a lot of the nonstick pans, I think it's TFE, I think that's the chemical, because I can't say the real name, that can be, leached into your food as you cook it.
Where's one thing that Pampered Chef is, it's probably before your time.
No, I've heard of it. I've just never researched it, so I don't want to say one way or another. Stainless steel is obviously the safest when you're cooking. So, but you can't put that in the microwave. This Mediterranean tuna, I have made it many, many times. Very good. I usually with tuna salads like this, like that, I think it calls for avocado. Maybe this one doesn't. Maybe it's the next one that calls for avocado. I was going to say, just don't put the avocado in and put it on top so that you can have enough for like a couple days lunch. It's this one that has avocado. And this one's super easy. But again, I would make it and then I would put your portion that you're going to eat, add avocado to actually what you're going to eat so it doesn't brown. So you can have it for at least 1 or 2 days for lunch.
What does it mean by white tuna? Is it, are you talking about fresh tuna?
It's tuna I recommend the bag, but you can get it in a can, and it's just, that's the label. That's the one that's shown, yeah, it's shown to be, have less amounts of mercury in it, because tuna, because it can tend to have higher amounts of mercury versus other fish. Well, I would recommend the ones in the bags because they're not in the can. So, but the bags are really easy, and there's like a ton of different ones at the grocery store too. I think I had that one on there twice. I apologize. So still continuing on our omega-3 kind of topic here. Chia seeds are high in omega-3. This is one of my recipes that's on my website. Overnight oats, I do make them. I actually had them for breakfast this morning. I make them on a regular basis because they're very easy. I can make 3 or 4 jars at a time, and then people in my family can grab them and eat them for breakfast. But these have chia seeds and hemp seeds, and if you do it without the half a scoop of protein powder, it still has 20 grams of protein in it. And if you add a half a scoop of protein powder, then you're getting 30 grams of protein. So it's pretty, yeah. You don't have to put it in there at all. It won't be sweet, but then if you don't like sweet, that's fine. I have a little pour and I just go like this really quick. I don't really measure it.
Is there any substitute for oats?
Not in this recipe. I don't know what you would substitute because it's overnight oats. That's the main. And then this one is just a chia pudding. And this one's also my own recipe. I like it because a lot of chia puddings, and what I have a lot of clients that have, don't like the texture of the chia seeds they can kind of be a texture issue. So I actually blend mine in the blender so that it's more of a yogurt consistency. But you can't eat it right away. You want to put it in the fridge for at least 30, 45 minutes so it kind of thickens up. But this one doesn't have oats, so this one might be better for you. Yeah. And then I usually just top it with like a little granola, a bunch of berries, and then I let my kids put whatever they want on it too. So a lot of people, when they think of the Mediterranean diet, they focus just on olive oil, which is amazing, and I would continue using it. But they actually did a study with 2 participants that were on the same Mediterranean diet, and with one half of the participants, they only let them eat nuts and nut butter for their fat. with the other half of the participants, they only let them eat olive oil, and the lab markers and all of like the end findings of the study were very similar. So even though olive oil is great, nuts are also amazing. They're really good for brain health. The ones that specifically are high antioxidants and anti-inflammatory are the ones that are listed. So walnuts, pistachios, macadamia nuts, cashews, almonds, and Brazil nuts.
Does almond milk count?
No, this doesn't have enough in there. The only one that might, I forget the brand. There's a brand that's in it's like a cube box, and I'm blanking on the brand name, but theirs is like for a normal cup of almond milk is probably like 40 to 60 calories and a couple grams of fat. This one's like 150 calories with a bunch of fat. I think it's because they use way more nuts. So maybe that one, but not in general. It wouldn't have the same components. So I think I've shared this with you guys before. This is just like a basics for dinner bowls for, again, whole eating, Mediterranean style eating, and different ways and things to kind of pair together, because it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be just what's in your fridge. So, thinking about a base, like, do you have some riced cauliflower that's in your freezer that you can quick saute up? Quinoa is one of my favorites because it cooks in like 12 minutes. Potatoes, or if you have pasta, I like a chickpea or a lentil pasta just because there's a little added for protein and fiber there. And then pick veggies, like what veggies do you have in your freezer or in your refrigerator? And same with the protein, like do you just have some eggs, fry up some eggs or hard boil some eggs to put on top. And then top with like your favorite olives or some roasted nuts or herbs, and make your little homemade dressing and stuff like that. It doesn't always have to be like a full recipe. I'm trying to provide recipes because I think that's more useful, but this is just in general an easy way to eat whole foods, eat Mediterranean style without being complicated. So this is also a favorite in my house. I happen to have a father-in-law that's his hobby is fishing, so I happen to get a lot of fish, fresh fish, and he often gets mahi-mahi. But I usually, do something very easy like the, dinner bowl basics before this. And, I'll do some blackened mahi-mahi with some sort of cabbage slaw, adding in lots of fiber. And then I'll do like pineapple or mango to give it like a fun sweet flavor with some rice and beans. And then I'll top it with some avocados and some limes. So again, it doesn't have to be complicated. I hope I'm giving you guys some inspiration of some things that you guys just have at home, right? That we don't have to be complicated with it. This is another recipe from my website, and it's just, again, another variation of a bowl. So this particular one has quinoa with cannellini beans and some lettuce. I threw on some herbs, and then cucumber, peppers, and red onions. And I love toasting my nuts. I think it brings out the flavor. So I'll toast them either in the oven or on the stovetop. You just have to put a timer because I have burnt a lot of nuts not paying attention. And then I usually just do a quick extra virgin olive oil with lemon and salt on top with that. And I believe this one is on my website too. This is just a simple citrus salad. Yes.
Can I get back to cheeses?
Yes.
I seem to like crumbled blue cheese.
Okay.
Gorgonzola.
Okay.
Or feta.
Okay.
And you can get it in the, plastic container.
Yeah.
And I put like 3 tablespoons over it, whether it's a Cobb salad or spinach salad.
Okay.
Is the Gorgonzola blue and feta good?
I don't know if those are like the fermented cheeses. I'd have to look at the list of them, and I don't have them in my brain right now. But anything that you're going to eat that's whole foods is better than processed foods. So if that's what's going to help you eat a salad, then I would say that's a good thing for you. For sure. So citrus salad, this one has, I think, feta on it. It may be goat. I can't remember. But it's just butter lettuce. I love it for the summer. We're towards the end of summer here, but with some chopped oranges, avocado, red onion, some quinoa. I tend to like quinoa because I burn rice. I'm not good at cooking rice, and quinoa is so much faster. And then chickpeas, and then it's, a fun little orange dressing that goes with that. And then you can put a protein on it, or if you want to just have the chickpeas be your protein, that can work too. My little tip with quinoa that I usually do if I have bone broth, I'll make it with bone broth instead of water or regular broth because it'll add a little protein in there. So if you're not having like a meat or something else that's higher in protein with your dinner, that can be like a swap that you can use. This is a fan favorite at my house too. Sweet potato and wild rice and kale wild rice. It's just different flavorings. It brings in, especially with the fall, this has like a fall flavor. And the maple Dijon vinaigrette with this is really delicious. And then I'll usually pair it with like grilled chicken or something. I'm glad I put this on here. This is actually one of my favorite fall ones that I haven't made in a while. But it's, you use kale with it, and you kind of like, you rub the olive oil with the kale. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to do that with kale, but it makes the salad so much more palatable. I feel like kale can be really dry and tough, but when you kind of massage the olive oil and a little salt into the kale, it starts breaking it down. So it actually makes it easier for you to digest. So if you've ever found like kale is hard for your GI tract to work with, that's part of it. So you can start that breaking down process when you actually massage the kale with olive oil and a little sea salt. But this one's really good. I have one child that likes it and one that doesn't, but I made this one what? Yeah, I know, 50-50. I actually made this one last night. I'll probably have leftovers tonight. This one's really easy, and again, it's something, if you keep the avocado out of it, it will keep longer, and you can just put the avocado on top of what you're actually eating. So again, we're talking whole foods, things that are really supportive of the Mediterranean diet. This is, an edamame crunch salad, so a great way to get in more plant-based protein. And I like the peanut sauce with it, that has a little bit of the, like that soy sauce, like that Thai flavoring too. And then the peanuts give it the crunch. I had a few smoothies that I was going to share because I know that part of Parkinson's can be that chewing can be more difficult. So this is kind of just like with the dinner basics. This is the smoothie basics. So the different things that you can add into smoothies to kind of create that critical four with the protein, fat, fiber, and color. So I'll share these quickly because I want to leave time for questions if you have any. But these are some of the ones that I make on rotation frequently. One of the nutritionists that I follow, her name is Kelly Levesque. Her company is Be Well by Kelly, and she does tons of different smoothie recipes. A lot of these are hers. So this is cookies and cream. I don't know what it is about the blueberries and the almonds. When you blend them together with the chocolate protein batter, it actually does taste similar to a cookies and cream smoothie. This is peanut butter cacao nib. I like that you throw in frozen cauliflower, you don't even taste it. It just makes it colder and thicker. So it's a great way to get in more veggies if you don't love eating your veggies, or if you have grandchildren that don't love eating their veggies. Blueberry muffin, this is a good one too. Blueberries are so great for brain health. And then this is a brain boosting one that actually has more blueberries, but it puts a lot of leafy greens with spinach and kale in it.
You always show it as frozen blueberry.
Because they're cheaper, and then they keep the smoothie colder, and they're way cheaper than and they keep longer. So if you're going to eat them like as part of a snack or with your sandwich or whatever, or on top of your oatmeal in the morning, then you can just use the fresh ones. But the frozen ones are just so much cheaper, especially if you get the organic ones too.
If you open my icebox, you'll see blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, all fresh. I go to the store like twice a week, and that's all I get is the fresh.
Well, you can get fresh. They're just more expensive.
More expensive.
Yes, the frozen will be cheaper, for sure. This is a banana green smoothie. that has chia and flax in it for its fiber. And then these are 2 soups. Full disclosure, I have not made these soups, but I liked that they were whole foods, had a lot of different spices and stuff in them, and thought they would be really filling, especially if you use bone broth because it's protein forward. So there's this one, and then there's this cashew carrot ginger soup that I like too. I liked the ingredients of. And then I think I've shared this with y'all before, but it's the foods highest in fiber because I think fiber is really important to balance your blood sugar. And I think that's all we have. Oh, that was the foods to limit, but I've showed you guys that before, so we'll go to questions. Yes.
Are, well, fresh vegetables that have been sprayed with whatever it is?
Yeah.
Are they actually gonna last longer and have better vegetable?
I guess sprayed with what?
I don't know what.
I don't know. I don't know that I know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, one of you.
I've had my chances.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you listed the nuts,
Yeah.
I didn't see pecans, but I did see cashews. I have always been concerned about cashews, whether if they really are good, they've got high mono or polyunsaturated fats.
Both mono and polyunsaturated fats, your MUFAs and your PUFAs, are really good for you. The ones that you have to be leery of more is your saturated fats.
I always thought of it as walnuts, almonds, pecans, and the Hawaiian nut. What is it?
Macadamia? Yeah. And so the list of nuts that I had was just specifically those that have shown to be beneficial for brain health. So, but again, it kind of goes back to if you're going to pick nuts or the tortilla chips, pick the nuts. It doesn't really matter what kind.
And I asked you one more question,
Mm-hmm.
and this is kind of personal. Where do you shop?
So I shop at Publix and I shop at Whole Foods. Full disclosure, my husband doesn't work for either, but he builds both. He's a contractor. So, but I also personally there's a Publix on every corner. I can't shop at Whole Foods very often because it's just not very close. So,
Please just go back one slide and foods to avoid. I didn't see them quickly enough.
oh yeah. So this is, I've showed this slide before. This is, and maybe you weren't here that day, but this is looking at studies and foods that will increase or speed up the progression of Parkinson's. So we talked about canned fruits and vegetables being things that have shown to speed up the progression. Soda, whether it's diet or regular, falls into that category. Fried foods. Beef, I would say large amounts of beef. I wouldn't say having a steak every now and then is a big deal or a hamburger. And then dairy, looking at ice cream, yogurt, and cheese. But I will say, if you listen to people, physicians, people talk about this on podcasts, it's like in the studies where they looked at all of this data and did comparisons on people that were diagnosed with Parkinson's and not, there's a big difference between eating meat that's been from a cow that was fed grain and eats grass that has pesticides on it versus a cow that's organic, that's fed their natural diet, that's on a regenerative farm. So those are totally different types of foods. And if your budget allows, buy the grass-fed regenerative farm beef, right? And I think that is very different than the other type of meat. Same goes for dairy. Like, were they eating or drinking organic dairy, or were they eating ones that had a lot of antibiotics and stuff put into the cows? Greek yogurt is great for you. The data specifically for Parkinson's shows less dairy because it shows more dairy can speed up the progression. But again, what were the studies looking at? They didn't differentiate what type of Greek yogurt. I would recommend eating Greek yogurt. As a nutritionist, I would get organic just because of the pesticides and antibiotics. Frozen yogurt. Well, if you pair it with foods that won't spike your blood sugar,
Just have a little bit.
yeah, there you go. You have to have a treat every now and then somewhere, right?
It's better than
Oh, yeah. Dark chocolate's a good one too. That's usually my go-to.
You talked about peanuts, peanut butter, um, Whole Foods and Fresh Market. I happen to be close, about 6 or 7 minutes from both of them.
Yeah.
But I grind my own peanuts and almond butter. And I think it's so much better than
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I lived on Jiffy or
Oh, we all did. I was a Jif girl. Who was Peter Pan?
Crunch.
Yeah.
But for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been grinding the peanuts
Well, that's amazing.
and the almond butter.
Yeah.
It's so much, I think it's so much better.
Oh, I'm sure it is because it's not processed. And it's like, how long ago were those nuts actually ground? A year, 2 years? So I'm sure it's better for you, for sure.
Well, it's better than preservatives.
Right. Did you have a question?
Yes, Joe and I have competing questions.
Okay.
My question is about sauces.
Okay.
I am a big fan of red sauce and Alfredo sauces.
Okay.
I always said I was a reincarnated 300-pound fat Italian woman. But I want to know which is better. Taking the 3 hours to puree the tomatoes and then all the stuff that goes into it. Can you just eat the jar or the can? Which is better?
Okay, so I would avoid the can for the reasons we've already talked about. I think a jarred sauce is fine. If you have time to cook and you want to do that, go for it.
No.
But the one thing I would look at is the sugar. So we're reducing our sugar spike. Have a great day. Thank you so much for coming. So a lot of tomato sauces will have added sugar even. So look at the added sugar mark, and that's usually how I buy mine at the store.
What about the Alfredos?
So those are not going to be quite as healthy. They're going to be higher in saturated fat, and they're probably going to have a lot more preservatives. Because if you think about it, it's a dairy that's in an aisle, unrefrigerated in a jar.
Okay,
So it's going to have a,
back to do what you do in moderation.
yep.
My question is this your bottle in this?
This? Yes.
So what do you drink?
I shouldn't have brought it. I knew I was going to get this called or this conversation. I grabbed a kombucha when I was walking out the door. I have not had time to I did not have time to eat today, so I'm going to eat as soon as I leave here.
I have two. The first question is getting protein.
Mm-hmm.
I've been drinking like the protein drinks, not Boost that has sugar in it.
Right.
I've got diabetes, so I get Atkins or I think it's Premier, but it's 15 or 30 grams of protein.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to drink that?
I would, if I was going to recommend you to do something, I would not get those because they have a lot of preservatives in them to keep them in those things, and they're probably pretty expensive. I would get, if you can tolerate dairy, which it sounds like you can, I would get a clean whey protein. And then I would mix it either with water or nut butter or something, and that's gonna probably be cheaper for you and way cleaner with less ingredients.
Also, milk,
Yes,
Fairlife milk
yes,
has the high protein.
I know.
And low carb.
I know, I've looked at it, it's not organic. I know. So
It's only got 6 grams of sugar.
I know, it's not organic. So if budget allows, I would get organic milk.
They can't keep Fairlife milk on the shelf.
I know. I just looked at it though, because somebody recommended it for my daughter that is underweight, and we're trying to get her to gain weight, and that was something somebody recommended. And honestly, for my daughter that really needs to gain weight, I'll probably just give it to her. But if we're being real, like looking at, I would prefer you just drink organic whole milk with a scoop of whey protein in it.
The last thing I'll say, early on in your slides, you have a lot of turmeric.
Yes, anti-inflammatory.
Say that some of the medication that I take, it doesn't allow for me to have. I used to have a lot of turmeric.
turmeric through food is different than a supplement. I would say you have to be very cautious using turmeric as a supplement. Turmeric through food, I mean, you can double check with your physicians. It's a very different, you would have to put in so much turmeric for it to have a interaction effect. I mean, they're talking like turmeric, the actual root that you're cutting up, or the turmeric root, which is just, it looks just like a ginger root, but the turmeric root, or they have it like a spice. It's in a jar like a spice. I'm not talking about a supplement.
Ginger and turmeric are in a jar.
You can get them as in a jar as a spice, or you can just get the root. I know you can get ginger at Publix. I think you can only get turmeric from like a Whole Foods or like a Fresh Market.
That fibers.
Okay, maybe there too. Yeah.
But, so I had to stop taking turmeric because of,
In food is different. The amount that they put in the supplement pills is way more. It's like very concentrated. You have to be very careful if people with supplements and stuff like that, for sure. Well, thank you guys. This was fun. You guys talked a lot today.
I